Our first speaker is Yero Washington. He is a two-time All-American at Fresno State. He started his career right down the street at Fresno City College, where he won a California Community College championship at 134 pounds. He's currently the executive director of Beat the Streets Los Angeles, giving back to the sport. And Yero, when we talk about what wrestling does for people, what you're doing with Beat the Streets in Los Angeles, you're giving the opportunity for some first chances, some places second and third chances, but opportunities and access for a college degree. You had not the easiest go of it growing up. And how much did wrestling and Fresno State wrestling specifically change your life?
Well, first I just want to thank everybody for showing up today. This is real important for Fresno State, but for wrestling in general. Without wrestling, without Fresno State, I'm not where I am today. A little bit about my background. I grew up in East Oakland, California. My father was shot and killed when I was just 9 months old. My mother, who's an amazing woman, was an addict, an alcoholic, died homeless. I dropped out of high school when I was about 14 years old, wandering the streets. Luckily I had a brother who took me in. I ended up in a small town called Corcoran, eventually ended up in Porterville, in the Central Valley. And that's how I found the sport of wrestling. Starting in high school, I had a great coach and a mentor there at that high school who really just taught me hard work, responsibility. And, somehow, some way, I won a state title my senior year. From there, I had an amazing coach, Coach Bill Music, a junior college coach, who he sat with me for a full day to get me situated at the welfare office, to get my financial aid in order. He did so much for me, giving me an opportunity. I ended up living with another Fresno State All-American, Alfonso Tucker. And we had some lofty goals that we pursued and achieved. And ultimately, I ended up at Fresno State with Coach Zolito, who's here on this call. I was again fortunate to be a couple-time All-American, and he's the one that convinced me to keep wrestling after college. I was able to make a U.S. national team. I wasn't a DC and Jordan Burroughs were on this call, or John Smith, but I did have a chance to travel the world, meet all kinds of amazing people in the wrestling community. It led me to a coaching career at Columbia University and Iowa State University, there with Kevin Jackson, who was an idol of mine. And now today, where I'm at now, in Los Angeles, working with Beat the Streets LA, helping kids like me, giving back. And so, there's a lot of stories like mine that are out there. Wrestling is so important. Fresno State wrestling is so important. Wrestling in the Valley is so important. And, again, I appreciate everyone for showing up today to tell that story.
Now, Yero, one thing that's unique about your story is the sport of wrestling. We say anybody can wrestle. Now, if you do some math and look at your weight class, there's not too many 134-pound, starting tight ends in the NFL or maybe outside of Muggsy Bogues, as far as the height goes in the NBA. Wrestling was an opportunity for you to compete and have a vehicle to earn a college degree. When we look at that value, what that value meant for people of your stature, how much does wrestling become a lifesaver, not just from the tough upbringing, but that opportunity to stave off a bully and be able to compete at the next level and earn that degree?
Yeah, I'd like to believe that I could have been a football player, but I actually did play 1 year and I was okay. But wrestling was it for me. There was something about it. I was, a little bit angry when I was younger. It gave me a good outlet. And, it's opened up the world for me. That's undeniable. Without wrestling, again, I don't see myself being in the place that I'm at. And there were just a lot of amazing people in the wrestling community that helped me to get here. And so so earn a degree, travel the world, do what I'm doing now. It's blessed me for sure.
Going to touch on this a little later, but just the relationship with your coach at Fresno City, who then, there's the D1 school right down the street. I mean, how much of the push from Fresno City to Fresno State was there to be coached by a guy that did the same route you did?
Yeah, it was great back then. The Avises were there. We were able to kind of co-train back then. We were Sam and I were talking. We were training when I just came to Fresno City, and he was a senior at Fresno State. But Coach Toledo really built that program, and we were producing All-Americans, and so it was a great time, that era, and obviously it continued after that.
Going to touch on some of those alumni that stayed in the Valley and are coaching here a little bit with Coach Toledo, but you brought up your roommate Tucker. He had a similar backstory in terms of rough upbringing, and how much did you two kind of bounce off each other and drive each other? And again, the vehicle of the sport of wrestling is what put you two together.
Yeah, we met when we were, freshmen, living in some apartment in Fresno, and he had a very similar background. He hadn't met his mother. His father was an addict. At that time, I remember just sitting with him, where it was like we were all about getting that education in wrestling, and we kind of made a commitment right then and there to pursue those goals. And we really leaned on each other and helped each other. His family became my family, the Darling family, and so that was instrumental for me.
When you look at the type of athletes that have, that came before you at Fresno, that were there with you at Fresno State, and then they were after you, they all, came there for the sport of wrestling. Some of them having the access to a degree, some of them not having access to a degree. If you were to look at the relevance to the university that wrestling has, obviously being someone who's represented the school, why is it important that Fresno State keep the wrestling program?
Well, I mean, the Fresno, Clovis area in the Valley, I mean, there aren't too many places in the country, maybe the world, that have that kind of wrestling culture that that area has. Obviously it's a successful program. We have Olympians who have come from there. Lots of lots of folks from different backgrounds. It tends to be a high Latinx population that that area serves. So you get a lot of first generation kids like myself, to earn a college degree. I think it's, there's lots of reasons why it's important.
When you look at the kids you've got now, beat the streets, Los Angeles, a lot of them coming from past that, they have similar upbringings. And how grateful was it for you to know that, oh, Fresno State's going to come back when they announced it was coming back, and you knew that you could send kids that had similar backgrounds to you to a place that you thrived educationally and athletically?
Yeah, we're building in LA, and that's the goal. We want to get these kids off to college, help them develop careers. And I'd actually, we got a couple of kids over to Fresno City College, and the next step was Fresno State, so they, I'd love to see kids from our program end up there, compete for Fresno, earn their degrees, and accomplish their wrestling goals. So yeah, that's exciting. It was exciting.